I'm Professor Michael L. Ross of UCLA's Political Science Department. I'm also Director of UCLA's Center for Southeast Asian Studies and Chairman of the International Development Studies Program. I'm going to be talking on Burma and how it uses its oil and gas wealth to protect itself from economic sanctions. Burma has recently joined an elite club, a club of states whose governments use their country's oil wealth to buy their way out of trouble. We might call them the oil bullies. Burma's membership in this club became clear last October when the UN Security Council scolded it for cracking down on anti-regime protesters. Stronger actions, like an arms embargo, were blocked by China. Burma is Asia's fastest growing petroleum exporter. China is the world's fastest growing petroleum importer. In May, Burma awarded China long-term access to its two largest offshore gas fields, turning down rival bids from India and South Korea. China is now returning the favor by protecting Burma from UN sanctions. For Burma's people, the government's natural gas exports to China have a bitter irony. Burma is not a major gas producer. Neighboring Thailand and Bangladesh actually produce more natural gas. But Burma is so poor, thanks to the military government's ineptitude, that it cannot consume the gas it produces. This leaves it with a large surplus to export. Thus, Burma's poverty is the military junta's salvation. If Burma were any wealthier, it would have no gas to sell to China, and the junta could lose its most powerful friend. Indeed, it was a hike in domestic gas prices, which would further reduce the country's gas consumption, that touched off the latest protests. Like other countries beset by the resource curse, Burma's oil and timber wealth helps keep a despotic government in power and fosters corruption and civil conflict. What makes the oil bullies unique is their ability to buy political protection from powerful allies. Sudan's President Bashir, for example, has used oil sales to China to hold off and then dilute diplomatic pressures to stop the slaughter in Darfur. The government of Equatorial Guinea has one of the worst human rights records in the world, but thanks to its oil riches, was welcomed in Washington last year by Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice as a good friend of the United States. Another good friend, the Saudi royal family, heads one of the world's most undemocratic regimes. Some of these oil bullies violate international treaties or pose threats to their neighbors. Iran's uranium enrichment program violates the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but its government is counting on its oil to buy its way out of trouble. Even when they do face sanctions, like Libya's Muammar Gaddafi or Iraq's Saddam Hussein after the first Gulf War, they use oil exports to comfortably evade these sanctions or to cushion their effects. The world's thirst for hydrocarbons has thus created a class of well-funded but unsavory governments who have little to fear from economic sanctions. If the US and its allies refuse to buy their oil, someone else will. Each of these governments has, in effect, a large stack of get-out-of-free-jail cards. The link between oil riches and bad international behavior is even deeper than it might first appear. One way to measure a country's global citizenship is to count the number of major international treaties that it ratifies. Another way is to look at how much money it donates to United Nations peacekeeping efforts. By both measures, oil exporting countries are unusually bad global citizens. They tend to ratify fewer major treaties and make stingier donations to UN peacekeeping operations than non-oil exporters with similar levels of income. Countries like Russia, Venezuela, and Saudi Arabia, for example, use oil and gas exports as a substitute for international cooperation. None of the oil bullies will run out of petroleum soon, but their political influence tends to rise and fall with world energy prices. The higher the price of oil, and it is at record levels, the less susceptible they are to diplomatic pressures. When oil prices drop, so does their ability to buy powerful friends. If Congress adopts an energy bill that reduces U.S. oil and gas exports, U.S. oil and gas imports, it will reduce world prices. And the lower the price of oil, the greater the chance that the governments of Burma, Sudan, Iran, and others will ultimately abide by international norms.